Hi everyone, the Beatles 150 series, and today it is number 52. Well, this is a title which I've seen a lot of you write about, saying wait till you get to, and in fact Vlad has said I can hardly wait till you get to Michelle. And so today I am listening to Michelle. Let's see what I have to read about it first. The official genre description is rock pop, and the inspiration for this song goes way back to 1959, when Paul and John used to attend parties organized by a guy by the name of Austin Mitchell. Paul says, I remember sitting around there, and my recollection is of a black turtleneck sweater and sitting very enigmatically in the corner, playing this rather French tune. I used to pretend I could speak French, because everyone wanted to be like Sacha Distel or Juliette Greco, so I used to sit around and murmur. It was my Maurice Chevalier meets Juliette Greco moment. Me trying to be enigmatic to make girls think, who's that very interesting French guy over in the corner? I would literally use it as that, and John knew this was one of my plays. In Paul's McCartney 321 series, he states, I had the Frenchy thing in mind. Edith Piaf did a record, Milord. I was kind of going off the back of that. Milord, Michel. In his book, The Lyrics, Paul adds, Milord was very interesting because it was out of left field, whereas with other songs, you knew what genre they were. In Milord, Piaf does the old trick of slowing down in the course of the song. I must have had a memory of that in the hopper. No serious work was ever attempted on this instrumental through the years, but since they knew that they needed to crank out another group of original songs for the upcoming Rubber Soul album, this tune was remembered. McCartney recalls, years later, John said, do you remember that French thing you used to do at Mitchell's parties? I said yes. He said, well, that's a good tune. You should do something with that. We were always looking for tunes because we were making lots of albums by then, and every album you did needed 14 songs, and then there were singles in between. So you needed a lot of material. So I did. Concerning the lyrics, in the McCartney 321 series, Paul explained, Jan was a French teacher, and I said, oh, Jan, you gotta help me. What's a rhyme for Michelle? She said, ma belle. I said, what's that mean? She said, my beauty. So he's pretending to be French, and he doesn't know what ma belle means. In his book, Many Years From Now, Paul continues the story. I said, that's good. A love song. Great. We just started talking, and I said, well, those two words go together well. What's French for that? Go together well. Sont les mots qui vont très bien ensemble. I said, all right, that would fit. And she told me a bit how to pronounce it, so that was it. I got that off Jan, and years later I sent her a check around. I thought I better had, because she's virtually a co-writer on that. From there, I just pieced together the verses. So he actually had to go consult with a French teacher to figure out some French phrases. I guess he incorporated those into the song, didn't he? I guess I'll find out. The song is unique among the Beatles' other recordings in that its lyrics are partially in French. Okay, yeah, got my answer right there. Michelle won a Grammy Award for Song of the Year in 1966. In 1999, BMI recognized the song as the 42nd most performed song of the 20th century, and it has become one of the most famous Beatles songs in France. Of course. An interesting live performance of Michelle was on June 2nd, 2010 at the White House when receiving his Gershwin Prize for Popular Song Award. Paul sang the song especially for Michelle Obama. There you go, Michelle, who was in attendance and sang along in her seat. Because of the romantic sentiments of the song, Paul commented, I could be the first guy ever to be punched out by a president. Well, okay. So this is a song many of you have been waiting for me to get to. Vlad is beaming behind the camera. It's a mix of French and English. Let's see how it goes. Okay, that is, knowing the backstory to it, I can read these lyrics and kind of laugh at how direct he is. he just took those words and pieced it together like that. I love this line. I will say the only words I know that you'll understand. Well, it's all he's got. I mean, it's as if he's trying to put a positive spin on it, but basically he's saying, I will say the only words I know how to say. It's not that I know that you will understand, but the only words that I know that you can understand. So this is a French girl he's got a crush on, apparently. You know, it really has this kind of throwback feel, and it feels so French. I could almost imagine it featuring in some World War II era or post World War II, somewhere in that 40s, 50s era movie, and it would fit perfectly. What a song! I love the guitar about it. All the other instruments just kind of faded into the background after the first couple of lines, but when that guitar came in with an almost kind of a clarinet quality, again, so French. It worked so well. Well, let's go back through it and take some time, piece by piece, and see how it goes. Isn't it interesting that when this starts, it's just acoustic guitar, and yes, it has this kind of complex chromatic descent harmony shifting going on, but there's nothing really that jumps out to my ears to forewarn me of the, I guess I could say, the Frenchiness, or even the musical feeling of sophistication. And I don't mean sophistication in some highly sophisticated manner, but you have to say that this melody, once it starts being sung, it's so smooth and glides through in such a unique way. We'll get to that. But in this intro, it's just the guitar's kind of going chink, 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 chink. You could even say it's a little bit clunky, right? A little bit heavy in its presentation. It's kind of like we're just plodding along a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing really to forewarn us. And then out of that, we find later in the music that holds so much. That is so much of what all the music is made of. And I want to talk about that a bit when we get to it. But let's listen to this one more time, then we'll go on. Even here, it still feels a little bit awkward. Michel. Like, there's a little bit of a heavy footstep in it. My belle, these are words that go together well. Like, can't you at least get a little bit of something flowing here? Accenting every... It kind of strikes me as being really quite illustrative of the awkwardness of trying to communicate with somebody, express yourself to somebody who... You don't know the language. There's a language barrier. She's French. You sound a little bit like an English country bumpkin, sort of. I got a crush on this beautiful French woman, and you're just kind of plodding around in your heavy boots, not really knowing how to get through to her. It gives that impression, and well, maybe it's suitable to the song, to the story. But by the time I got to the end of this song, I felt completely different about the melody and everything. But here at the beginning, it feels a bit awkward. Several things. It's going to take me a little bit to get through, even though this is such a short piece. I have a lot of little things I want to talk about. Before I get off that first phrase, one of the things that, not just the way he sings it, let's see, I guess this is Paul singing, isn't it? And it's the way that the drums are just chick, 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 chick. They're accentuating this clunky, ploddy awkwardness. The only thing that's really smoothing it out and making it bearable are the oohs in the background. And that does help, especially when we get to the second phrase, which is musically the same, but it's when he sings it in French. And as he starts to sing it in French, maybe it's just the French language, but it suddenly feels a little bit smoother. At least the way he's singing it, a little more legato, a little more relaxed. Or perhaps it's just because he's trying to be a little bit exotic and speak to this French woman a little bit, Anyway, it's improving slightly, a very slight bit. Now, the other thing, I've talked quite often in this series to date about triplets. And sure enough, we have triplets here. It's interesting to me because I understand from what I read that this song isn't primarily John's writing. And I kind of got to the point where I thought that John was the one responsible for triplets, mostly. But now, here this is a primarily Paul song, and lo and behold, here's a triplet. What does this do? Now this brings me to something I should maybe save for a little later in the song, but I'm going to say it now because now's the moment, it seems. By the end of the song, I felt like this could almost be classed as a sort of art song. It's not quite an art song. It's kind of a funny mix between, it feels like it's trying to be an art song, or is partially an art song in the classical style, as well as a sort of a more popular French piece of music. It's that mix of popular and classical that gradually starts to seep through the whole music. But here at the beginning, one of the things that I would say makes it tend more towards the art song side is that this first phrase, let's count the bars. Starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was right. Typically, folk songs, traditional songs, popular songs, whenever I talk about phrase length on this channel, usually it's when I'm noticing either unusual phrase lengths or standard. And most often, the bulk of that more popular music is standard phrase lengths, 4 bars. It's a standard length. It's kind of like the length of a line of poetry. You don't have to know music to know what I'm talking about with 4 bars. It's just there's a certain flow and a certain measure where it feels like at that point we should pause and take a breath. But this feels a little bit shortened at the end, or else a little bit extra long for one unit. Michel. No, I'm saying Michel. Michel. He sings Michel, so now I'm falling into Michel. Michel, my belle, these are words that go together well. My Michel. And he shortens it there. Instead of my Michel, my Michel. And then when he sings the French, gets to the end. Très bien ensemble. Not très bien ensemble. So just enough changing of the rhythm a little bit adding a triplet, shortening the length of it so that it doesn't end up too long, too measured, too square, let's say. And that's the first clue we have, that it might end up a little bit more, have a little special quality to it by the end of the song. Okay. Now, I said after my first listen that I felt like all the instruments kind of faded into the background after the first couple of lines. And this is kind of the point at which it starts to become less obvious to me, less in my face that there are instruments chunking around in there. But one of the things that does stand out to me in the instrumentation is the bass, mostly because there's a sort of, it has just the right pacing. It's very simple. It stays out of the way. But every once in a while, as in this moment here, let's see if I can mark it on the score. Until I find a way. Just as these voices are doing their ooh upwards, so also the bass joins in and walks upwards nicely along with them and just adds a little extra attention to that. Until I find a way. I like that. I like that when he's singing. Okay, let me talk about this here for a minute. This I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm trying to picture the story of this piece of music, and the more I think about it, the funnier it gets, even the more awkward it gets, even though the piece itself feels so special. There's something kind of humorous about it. Let me explain. He's claiming to be ignorant of the French language, and he's after a French girl. Okay, fair enough. And so he's being all trying to be romantic, and he's singing. Let's see, what is it? Ma belle sont des mots qui vont très bien ensemble. Yeah, très bien ensemble. What is this phrase anyway? It's the same thing that he said in English. These are words that go together well. Michel, ma belle. He's being a really awkward poet, isn't he? In his love-struck state. And somehow he managed to forget that who doesn't know the word amour, right? He should know amour. What is this? It's so funny. And I think it's a great element of this song. It reminds me actually of, let's say, a classical composer, a French, let's say Saint-Saëns. Saint-Saëns' music. Saint-Saëns is known for his kind of acid sense of humor in his music. And I feel like the humorous element here could almost be John Lennon's humor. But no, this happens to be Paul. And the more I'm going through this and sitting with this, the more amusing it gets to me that a piece that comes off so special and has so many nice things about it, when you really dig into it, there's something kind of ironic and humorous about. But of course, it paints the picture really well, doesn't it? A clumsy, awkward person. Even the way it's presented, we could say poetically. Although, yeah, we could call this poetry, couldn't we? I'm just sitting here thinking this through in the moment, and the more I think about it, the more there's so many different elements coming in and different angles and perspectives to the piece. It's a lot of fun. So, here he is. Or here this character is. Putting out a French sentence These are the only words. These words go together well. And then he goes on and saying, here, I love you, I love you, I love you. Kind of, it intensifies here. Some more triplets. Kind of intensifying the, and I need you, the desperation. I need to, I need to, I need to. In this moment. All right, now let's get down to the meat of what I've really enjoyed about the song, because I've been kind of dancing around it and grabbing these other things first. I am intrigued and I enjoy the way this melody is really not sophisticated in its own right, on its own. It could be kind of pedantic at times. I say the only words I know that you understand. That's heavy-handed. But other times, it kind of goes off into this desperate moment of, I love you, I love you, I love you. There's this outburst of emotion. There's this grabbing for some connection here. I need to. What does the last verse say? I want you. What a great way of setting that phrase there. With those triplets and the higher range, vocal range, this is kind of the peak of the melody. I haven't counted the notes, but I'd say it's at the top end of the melody. And that's in contrast to the opening of the verse. Let's go back here because it's close by. Michelle, ma belle. Let's go to the piano. So we have this kind of jumping around. Let's go down here. It jumps around, doesn't it? It sits here and then kind of lurches into, and then angular bum, 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 bum. And then we have this awkward, diminished chord in the melody. It's awkward, isn't it? But then the beautiful thing is what's happening in the backing voices and in the bass. So here's what's happening in the backing voices. We have this, and this is what we heard in the introduction. Something similar to this. Long, sustained, close movement, close harmony, shifting just neighbor to neighbor, semitones, tones. Step down a little bit, step down a little bit, and then we end up here. There's something about that reminds me a bit of, what is it, the Albinoni Adagio. Not French, but still, not even Albinoni, but still, it has that real smooth, chromatic, complex feeling. And you stack this angular melody with this very smooth backing voice, and then the bass is helping that out. In its own way. But then when we get to the, where is this here? Yes. when we get to this place where I said it was very pedantic, I will say the only words I know. Words I know that you understand. Listen to what the bass is doing there. It's doing the same sort of thing. And this is exactly a repeat from the intro. That harmony from here. F minor. Stepping down in the bass. Stepping down again. Stepping down again. While holding this, it gives it such a smooth, sophisticated, lovely, almost a velvet quality, doesn't it? And then it continues, we're going here now. Such a nice bit of coloring and shading to the music. All of this is what makes it feel both very visceral and immediate and kind of personal, intimate in its desperation and love-struck state, as well as the other element that I was mentioning, the feeling that it could almost be an art song. Listen to this here. I need to. This guitar part here, so colorful, and it kind of works with the, grab my pencil here, it works with the descending part that we've had in the voices, doesn't it? This ooh business. Now the guitar is doing this little figure, which also steps down and steps down a little bit more and a little bit more. And as it goes, it's in this sort of baritone range that's, I'm not even going to say velvet. It feels softer than that. There's a fuzziness to it, almost a teddy bear fuzziness, and it's bringing all of this into play in just these 2 minutes and 40 some seconds. All of this in this little piece of music, which the more I listen to it, detail by detail, the more I feel like, oh, this is really a special piece. You are right. All of you are right. This is something unique and special, and it could have been so hodgepodge. It could have been so come out really haphazard and strange, but somehow all of these elements come together and combine to make this beautiful little moment. I'm hoping you will know. And his sort of hoarseness there. I like the way he handles each of these lines, each of these verses, we could say, differently here. I need you, I need you, I need you. And then when he sings I need you, there's this nice little trill that's different from the first time when he says I love you, and now when I want you, he's almost growling. There's a little bit of hoarseness in there, and it gives a wonderful coloration in that moment of intensity each time. I want you, I want you, I want you. I like this low bass note when he gets to you'll. I'm telling you, so you'll understand. Right here. Listen to that. And it has been that way every time when he gets to this point, which is the point that I said could be really pedantic if it's just the melody. But this is another element, the bass coming in and adding a depth there.
Aren't you? I think you know by now.
We don't really get to appreciate those things until we are partway through the song, and suddenly all these little fragments start coming together to create this wonderfully complex, and that's why I say sophisticated piece of music, because it's really quite a challenge to take so many different elements, put them together, and have it come out sounding good. I mean, like ordinarily decent. And this, I'm tearing it to pieces here, but listening straight through, it has such a unique quality to it.
Oh, you'll understand.
And this, okay, I've talked about this little figure, right? Now look what's happening here. First, at the beginning, it was the introduction, all on its own, just the acoustic guitars. Then it got mixed in with this bum 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 bum, and now here at the end we're kind of wrapping up, coming to a sort of coda. It's the same instrumental figure, but the melody above it is kind of fresh, kind of new. It's not what has been above it before.
And I will say the only words I know.
And it fades away. I feel like I want to listen to it straight through once more before I wrap this up. So let's do this now. Yes, I love this piece. I love it because it feels incredibly special. And at the same time, when you start digging into it, you find all these quirky little elements about it. And as I tear it apart, as I sat here tearing it apart, I got to think, well, what a mishmash, what a hodgepodge, this and this, piece by piece. And we tear it apart and have it in shreds on the table in front of us, and we think, could anything passingly acceptable be made of this? And yet when it's all together and it flows, it feels, I love that it feels so ordinary and yet so special. I love that it clearly has a sort of Frenchy overtone. At the same time, you can't call it authentic French at all. And that is wonderful because the entire story is about this person who is not French and wants to be able to interact with somebody who is French. It sets all of these elements up so well in that regard. I like the humor of it. I like the sweetness about it. I like the awkwardness about it. I like all of these little elements. I feel like every part of it is just the right amount, that it doesn't become overly this or overly that. Now, why does it feel French? Would it feel sort of Frenchified if there were no French words in the lyrics? And my thinking is, yes, I think it would still feel French, because it has this feeling of very understated expression. This is not a passionate, flamboyant love song. It's not something we could call Italian. doesn't really feel like an English love song, an American love song. There is something about it that feels French, and I think it has to do with the understated quality and the way in which, well, I didn't even talk much about the chords, but there's some quite jazzy chords in here. But as I was saying, it does not have the square feel. Neither does it have the 12-bar blues feel. And so when these jazzy chords come in, they give this impression of a sort of 20th century French piece of music. You could take these chords and make a great French impressionist piece of music out of them. At least include them in a French impressionist piece of music. They work very well in a French art song, and here they are in this, and they help give it that quality of, as I said, maybe a 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, no later than 50s movie moment. And I can't quite call it a postage stamp or a postcard quality to the music, but it's almost like a moment in a movie scene quality. And I like that. It's kind of a little snapshot of a life that once was or could have been. Well, there I have Michel. Should I say Michel? Michel. I might never pronounce that name naturally again. Number 52 in the Beatles 150 series. A lot of fun. I guess I'll be listening to this plenty of times in the future just because I enjoy the quirkiness and the beauty of it. And I'll see you all soon.